Hello and welcome to Coach Quip, episode 140. I'm Coach Chris.
I'm Coach Robyn.
And today we're talking about creating more inclusive gym spaces.
So this one's timely. This is something that we always kind of try to do here, right, as an owner and a coach. One of our big things is trying to create a welcoming environment for everyone, regardless of experience or race or identity or ability or anything else. People feel hella uncomfortable coming into gyms.
Oh, very much so.
Even if they don't think that they're anything that's different from that norm, they still feel very, very uncomfortable coming in. And we need to remember that as owners and coaches and representatives of communities that want to welcome people in. Some crazy stats that we dug up kind of looking at how uncomfortable people actually are. Up to 30% of women in gym spaces, this is crazy, have talked about either being touched or commented inappropriately. I would actually guess that this is higher than 30%.
Oh yeah, that's just who's reported.
Yes, 100%. Mm-hmm. And 73% of women, right, have actually said that they've changed their workout routine or gone at a different time or stopped going altogether because of those uncomfortable kind of feelings that they get inside of gym spaces. So we actively try to make it not the case coming in. I don't think that having athlete in our name helps us. But at the end of the day, if you walk in our space, you are an athlete, and everyone is ultimately the same. But we also take a lot of pride in doing things beyond that to make Edge, in any gym that you're at, really, truly the most kind of inclusive and welcoming possibly.
I felt really fortunate to find Edge when I first moved here from New York because, kind of when I was thinking about where do I start my fitness journey in a new city, right? And there's big box gyms, which to me feel like a sales pitch for personal trainers and kind of soulless. Like I've never been to a big box gym that has a strong community.
It's pretty anonymous. Yeah.
Like you go in, you do your thing, you leave. And that's good for some people, but also can be really uncomfortable and not the right fit depending on what you're looking for. And then there are run clubs, but you don't necessarily know the vibe of the run clubs either. And as soon as I stepped in the space here, I felt like this could be a home for me. And it very much has turned into that, but it was because of quite a few intentional and subtle things that were in the space or the language of the space, the expectations of the space, that made it really clear that it was going to be a good fit for me.
And I think too, for us, we're 10 years in. It's stacked, right? It is it's built, which I am really pumped about because a lot of times it's coaches and our employees that come up with ideas on how we can do things differently. And I think it's just the ability to, you own it, it's yours, and you're small, and you can pivot and make it what you want. And so I'm always really proud of it, but it's very much kind of like an all of us effort, including athletes as well.
Yeah.
So here are some ways. Here are some ways that we really strive to make Edge more inclusive. So first is really prioritizing diversity and inclusion in our hiring and training practices. So not only diverse individuals, but also diverse types of certifications that our team has. So one's on injury prevention or working with older populations. We have a coach that's very, very passionate about pre and postnatal exercises, which has really helped guide what our alternates are inside of our classes. Working with athletes with disabilities and having them in class and having a completely separate sheet of things that we can pull from for each individual athlete. It's just really, it's empowering and it's cool. It's cool to see, but it definitely takes a little bit of mindset shift of that being a priority, but the payoff of it for us in how much it's enriched our culture has really superseded any effort that we would ever put in.
Yeah, absolutely, and we get that feedback from our athletes too, that they appreciate that. We also have been providing continuing education for both the coaches and the techs, and I really value this piece because it feels like part of me being a coach here is I know that I will constantly be leveling up, that this is not a place where our coaches stay stagnant or that they're forced to just do independent continuing education because you're always providing that sort of opportunities. So we do sexual misconduct training for the coaching staff and the techs, but also bystander intervention training is something that we're doing right now. So the coaches have all been trained and the techs are being trained on that. And then seizure protocols, because we had a tech who has seizures, and so that was
I
training.
learned a lot with that one.
And that was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it speaks to, like, when a need arises, we find a way to address it. And so that was a really cool training for us to get. And then touch protocol, so how to appropriately do corrections for our coaches in regards to touching our athletes.
Yeah, and that was interesting because I do think that one's changed a lot in the last 4 to 5 years with COVID. Like, we were so used to this big bubble, and now it's like, oh no, we need to actually only do verbal and then kind of progress from there. And it's, it's just, stuff's always changing, right? We are not static.
Not static. And that one to me is such a big one because, it wasn't something that I was thinking about maybe 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But I've never really been like a handsy coach, because I don't like when people touch me necessarily when I'm working out. So, like, from my own experience. But I know there are people who have gone through youth and adult sports who that's very much their experience is like, let me just put you in the right position, right? And I think that just like increases the level of comfort for everyone to be attentive to that. So that's been a really cool one.
A lot of aha moments out of that one.
Mm-hmm.
Next up is scaled options for all fitness levels and ability levels in our classes and in our training. So whether that's offering like a range in our written run programming, that's time-based and making sure that everybody is starting and stopping at the same time where it's self-scaling, or even in our strength classes where we have a workout written and then we have options for leveling up or for having an alternate that might be a little bit more entry-level or beginner-friendly. We go as far as writing it up onto our big screen and having it in the chat on Zoom. And I think, I'm not gonna lie, as a coach, it makes it hella easy.
Yeah.
Because we can just literally read the line and demo it once, and everybody knows that they have options. And I think because of that, they pick the right one for them, and it's very empowering, and they learn how to kind of arm themselves and go about the workout in the best way possible.
And it doesn't single anybody out. So you can do either of these options, or you can do any of these options, and it doesn't make a person feel deconditioned or like less capable than their peers by having that option. It's just you can choose whatever works for you. It could be jumping jacks or mountain climbers.
No, we're not doing jumping jacks. I got the whole class to do mountain climbers instead of jumping jacks yesterday, people.
This is an ongoing battle.
Mutiny!
We'll maybe do a special episode about that. So another way that we have done this is through, I call it culturally inclusive and also family-friendly music. So
we went through a dark phase with Spotify, y'all.
Again, it's been a journey, right? So we make sure that all of our music is family friendly, and even though we don't allow children into our space, just you don't need curse words everywhere we go, right?
Oh my goodness!
We want to make sure, especially as music has shifted so much to be really kind of vulgar in a lot of ways, that our workout music is pretty neutral. But we also switch it up, so you're not just going to hear 90s rock, right, in every class. We have hip-hop. I did a whole class of Latinx music the other day. We have reggaeton, like whatever.
People come for your music, it's true.
Yeah, thank you.
But I think when it's vulgar, for me it's distracting, and I cuss a lot. It's just as an adult. But yes, that's true. But when you're working out and you're like, was that the B word just being thrown around, right?
Yeah.
And it should be about the workout and not necessarily the lyrics. This next one I definitely stole from another gym, which is creating all of our meetings with our mission statement, which is that we collectively, we as the entire community, we make athletes that tear down walls and achieve personal best in all aspects of life. But it all comes back to that, is that if we make a better runner, if we make someone that can squat prettier or heavier, we're not just making that a better athlete, we're making them a better parent, a better spouse, a better citizen of humanity, being able to do more good in the world because they are a healthier, more robust version of themselves. And just reminding people of that and reminding our team of that has been really centering.
It's been great. Every coach's meeting starts that way, and I think for me as a coach, it really centers me in like the purpose of why I'm here and why I do what I do, and makes it a lot easier to do our jobs for sure. We also have gender-neutral private changing spaces, which I think is super valuable, particularly for people, in the queer community. Like I'm always talking about gender-neutral, gender-inclusive bathrooms and things like that. But in a gym space, I mean, it just makes so much sense because everybody likes privacy, right? And so to have a private place to change where you're not going to a big box gym where there's a row of showers and like you're on display for people, it's a much more humanizing and dignifying experience to be able to just like have your private space. So we have that for changing rooms. We have a gender inclusive restroom and
shower rooms too.
And shower rooms, right? So like all of that, I think, creates a much safer space for people to feel like they can show up and do their work, but not have to be so body conscious or concerned about interactions with other people in those more private moments.
Yep, I love that one. Next up is just how to get feedback. So we have multiple ways that people can contact us. If you just listen to episode 139 on notifications, email is probably best for me. But you can email, you can text. We do surveys and polls, especially within our members group. We have a physical suggestion box so that if someone is not wanting to have any type of confrontation, or maybe they want to make it anonymous, there's always a way, if you're a little more introverted, to be able to participate and give shout outs or ask for things to be shifted in productive ways.
Mm-hmm. All right. This one might be my favorite way of being inclusive, and it might be one that I value the most. Is I think that Edge as a facility and you as an owner have a low tolerance for bullshit. And what I mean by that is, like, in other gym spaces, there is some of what you call it peacocking, right? Like the showing off. There's mansplaining, right? And so this has been a viral trend on videos I've been seeing of like dudes just giving unsolicited advice to women working out. And
no, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
It also doesn't happen here.
Yeah, it does not happen here. We are not here for that. And what I think I value the most is that you've created a space where people can just say like, dude, that is not okay here. And I think the members feel like they can do that. The coaches know they can do that. The techs know they can do that. And like we just have a higher standard of existing in the space that just demands that everyone respect one another, and that creates just a really beautiful community.
I think the more we can say it, and we can do a better job of saying it too, that same thing of like, if you enter the space, you're an athlete. If you have a body, you're an athlete, and all athletes are the same. Mm-hmm. A lot of that comes from just ego and like people wanting to, because they feel insecure, maybe they want to say a certain thing that's inappropriate, and we try to squelch it very early. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you that some people who've like exhibited that when we've called it out, they've become some of my favorites because mm-hmm. they appreciated that we were like, hey, that doesn't fly. And then they didn't feel the need to do that, and that was liberating for them too. Yeah. This is truly a community effort though. There's no way that it comes from one person. It's upheld by everyone.
Yeah. And I think the way that feedback is delivered, because of the vibe in the space, and because it is so friendly and like we're all in this together, we're all trying to level up and become better people and better athletes together, that it's not like pulling someone to the side and being like, you did this and you shouldn't do that. It's more like like having a chat with a close friend, even if I don't really know a member like that and we're not hanging out after hours. I feel like I can have conversations with people on a human level that allows them to make those changes and still show up and not feel ashamed or feel guilty or feel like they were put in the corner. Yeah. That they can just be like, oh, I can do better there.
Yeah. And same, I also expect to be called out on stuff. Mm-hmm. Like 100%. Like I'm like, give it to me. What can I do better? Yeah, what did I do wrong? Mm-hmm. Last is probably my favorite, which is emotional support pugs. Maybe this is why we have 3. For real though, it really does help having animals around. I love having them in class, except for when they're trying to get into people's food. But it is a really great icebreaker, and the more that we kind of play around with this, the more that we mesh it something, like if it is like a fitness challenge that we have coming up, if we put a pug in the messaging or put a reference to a pug, it makes people more at ease. They're also not athletic dogs like at all, so it's not like we've got like a really cool like Rottweiler walking around that's like all muscly. We've got 3 little fur balls that are probably going to steal your lunch, so it really helps set the tone, and I don't know, I love them, that.
Yeah, but also in terms of the recovery, I think it makes it feel more like home to have an animal around, homey. Which very homey. And there are proven benefits to having pets around for recovery purposes.
This is true.
So
follow at Pugcovery.
Yeah.
This one's great segue into ways that members can create a more welcoming space, because this is whether you're doing it with us or doing it at another gym or at a run club whatever it is, there are things that you can do. So first up is greeting others. Even I actually struggle with this one a little bit sometimes. I still do it, of course, but saying hello to someone that you don't know, right? Make a quick introduction, ask them a question. If you see someone standing in a corner, find that person, introduce yourself. Chances are they're a newbie. You want to put them at ease. Maybe you connect them to someone else, and you're going to feel a lot more connected too, which is going to be huge.
Yeah, I try to do this before and after my classes, but this is something that everyone can do anytime that they're in the space, for sure. Next up is to use inclusive language. So don't assume people's pronouns. Don't say sir or ma'am. Did you tell me you hate when people say ma'am?
Oh, to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's old school language, right? But don't say Mr. or Miss. Just allow people to introduce themselves so that they feel comfortable in the space being who they are.
Next up is holding ourselves and each other accountable. So we're just no bullshit, right? So don't let jokes or comments slip by. Don't be afraid to, politely, and it comes from a place of kind of caring, of correcting them if they use the wrong names or pronouns, especially if they make rude comments or maybe even off-color comments that are like on the bubble. Particularly if it's like about someone's like body or gender presentation or anything else, including if it's a joke or a comment about even a public figure or someone who's not present. Like, just speak up and say, that made me feel kind of weird. Like, I don't think you want to come out that way, but it could.
Yeah, if we're silent in those cases, it looks like we approve or are thinking the same thing as that joke or comment. So we always want to intervene in those. Next up would be to use our chats. So we have a number of WhatsApp chats for trail running and group runs and tri-club. Engage in those chats. That's a great way to create a more inclusive space, is to just have more voices in there. And particularly if somebody is asking a question, you can use your expertise to pop in and not leave that person hanging. I've had a couple of people who have tried to engage in the chats and not gotten responses, largely because it was like the time of a run where all the photos started coming in.
Oh, it got blocked.
Their message just got swept away. But I know that they felt awful about that. And so you can answer people's questions, pull them into conversations, make them feel included.
Next up is giving mojo. So shouting out other members and athletes that you see working hard, that uplift you, and telling them that they're doing great things. This stuff sticks with athletes forever and ever, and it can be in person, it can be digitally, whatever is, it really, really, really makes a difference. We had an instance of this in our episode 138 with our moms, and where, one mom was like, you were what got me to come in, and that's a big deal. So give those flowers.
Yeah. And then finally, if you see something, say something, speak up. This is your space at Edge. This is your space as much as it is ours. And we want to make sure that every single person feels like they can walk through the door, fully be themselves, and know that they belong. And so we are doing the bystander intervention training that I had mentioned for the coaches. And by the time this comes out, I believe probably all of our techs will also be trained. And then you had said that we're going to open this up to the community, right?
Yeah, we're going to do a public one. This is, again, above and beyond what a kind of a normal bystander intervention training. This is something that our GM, Patty Flynn, has really kind of driven forward. And it is so, every time I sit in one, it's like we wrote the slides and I still learned something. So look for that, because we will definitely be offering that to the public.
All right, so to make a space more inclusive is all of our responsibilities. We want to make sure that every person feels like they are an athlete and that they can come into our gym spaces and really level up, not just in their sports, but in their lives and in their communities. So that is not just our jobs as people who work here or someone who owns the place.
It's everyone's.
It's everyone's. So take these tips, make a more inclusive space, and
thank you all.
Thanks for listening to Coach Quip. Original music performed by Mend. Follow us online on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Edge Athlete Lounge. Our podcast lives in the blog section of our website. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and you can check out the show notes for additional ways to contact us. Ready, set, onward we go.